The mayor's office presented Newton's financial future to the city council to give them an update on where Newton is now financially and what the future may hold. At Monday night's city council meeting, Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller covered Newton's capital improvement plan. The CIP report was covered extensively by Chief Financial Officer Maureen Lemieux, Chief Operating Officer Jonathan Yeo, and the mayor. The PowerPoints and dialogue were presented to the city council and school committee. The mayor opened up the conversation, introducing the 5-year financial forecast, 5-year financial plan, and the 5-year capital improvement plan. As COVID cases are climbing once again, economists predict a slower economic recovery than the Great Recession. 1,064 Newtonians had COVID and 138 died. Requests to the Newton Food Pantry have skyrocketed and people are struggling to pay their mortgages and rents, let alone staying warm this winter. The mayor talked about her general fear of social isolation for the public this winter, where folks will have too much time with their computers and screens and not enough time with friends and colleagues. She also reiterates that Newton is still fighting issues like climate change and systemic racism, and those issues remain at the forefront. Mayor Fuller said that Newton came into this recession strong, acted quickly, and saved $9.6 million in fiscal year 2021 budget. Maureen Lemieux went into great detail explaining the 5-year financial forecast. Starting with numbers, back in March, many excise taxes were deferred. Newton lost $600,000 because of deferrals. Building permits stayed strong and were up $500,000. And rooms and meals taxes, meaning restaurants and hotels, lost $425,000. Back in March, the federal government made interest rates almost $0. This caused a $350,000 decline in interest income. Parking meters lost $500,000, parking tickets lost $250,000. So how did the city reallocate those funds to support Newtonians during the COVID crisis? With fiscal year 2020 budget of $429 million, $1.5 million from free cash was allocated to the crisis fund, and this $1.5 million in free cash is always used. Pre-COVID, the budget looked something like $445 million and $1.5 million in free cash. So with a $446.6 million budget, $2.5 million was borrowed from the roads program and added to the free cash fund. And so that $4 million in free cash was used to deliver the $439 million budget to Newton. Over $7 million was cut from the budget, but that at least had the ability to soften the blow. The city asked Newton Public Schools to reduce their budget by $1.5 million. They also asked the retirement board to reduce their increase, meaning increasing pension 4.8%, which was a half of what they were going to increase by. And municipal departments needed another $4 million. Now for the forecast for fiscal year governor's budget. The governor originally proposed $25.6 million for the city of Newton's education, and ultimately they'll receive $25.1 million instead. That's still $472,000 less than the original budget. It's too early in the year to determine excise tax, and interest will not change either. Rooms taxes typically take in $2.5 million each year. The budget is reduced to $1 million. Rooms are most severely impacted of different revenue sources. Meals tax typically takes in $2 million, but that is cut in half. There is usually $1.3 million in parking tickets, cut down to less than $800,000, and the parking meters usually $1.5 million, also below $800,000. There was $1 million in a non-lapsing fund, and a good portion was spent on overtime for first responders, overtime for buildings department employees to clean and disinfect buildings, and overtime to reconfigure office space. Funds were also spent on grab-and-go meals, face shields, gloves, masks, gowns, sanitizing equipment, and the city applied for and received $220,000 from the CARES Act for this account, and they submitted a first application to FEMA for $1.7 million. But the CARES Act and FEMA funds are on the fast track, and we'll see those reimbursements. The CARES Act funding will provide HVAC in schools. There are around 12,600 students in Newton schools, and with $350,000 in miscellaneous funding, $200,000 from public health, added funding was received for police and fire departments. $1.7 million was awarded in CDBG funding, where over $300,000 was used to give grants to small businesses and restaurants, 27 different small businesses to be exact. $10,000 to $15,000 was used toward rental/mortgage assistance, along with other needs through the city, such as domestic violence, food insecurity, mental health, and more. $2 million from the Community Preservation Committee awarded funds for housing stability since moratorium in evictions is set to expire. Schools also qualify for an additional $3.7 million of funding. Much of it will be CARES funding grants, and 2/3 of the money is to be spent on technology to make sure every child has the same tools as their peers. Together, there is a committed $8.5 million and $3.2 million can be appropriated. There is also $6 million from the CARES Act that hasn't been tapped into yet. Maureen says Newton is in a financially good place and referenced the 15-year rate of return. Jonathan Yeo covered the capital improvement plan from fiscal year 2022 to 2026, mentioning new projects as follows: Oak Hill Middle School 3 classroom addition, police headquarters HVAC improvement, transportation roads improvement, street projects, new citywide permitting system, fire apparatus replacements, water system, sewer system, stormwater system, and new Cal project and school HVAC improvements. And projects that are postponed due to reallocated funds: Newton Early Childhood Program, Lincoln Elliott Elementary, Children's Room expansion at the Newton Free Library, Countryside, Franklin, Ward, Underwood, Harris Mann renovations. And Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller tied everything together, thanking everyone who helped keep the city operating safely and urging everyone to be safe and wear a mask, and reminds us that we will recover and come out stronger. Reporting from Newton City Hall, I'm Katie Mulcairn with Newton News.